Welcome everyone. Imagine going to sleep in a free city and waking up in a prison. This is exactly what happened to millions of people in Berlin on August 13, 1961. In just one night, a city was divided by concrete and barbed wire. Today, we'll explore one of the most dramatic moments in modern history. We'll discover how the Berlin Wall appeared overnight, separating families, friends, and neighbors. This story shows us how quickly freedom can disappear. Let's travel back to Berlin in the summer of 1961. The city was already divided into two parts after World War II. West Berlin was controlled by the United States, Britain, and France. East Berlin belonged to the Soviet Union and Communist East Germany. But there was one important difference. People could still move freely between East and West Berlin. Every day, thousands of East Germans crossed into West Berlin. Many never came back. The communist government was losing its best workers. Doctors, engineers, teachers, and young people were leaving. Between 1949 and 1961, about 2.7 million East Germans escaped to the West. This was a disaster for the communist system. The East German leader, Walter Ulbricht, had a problem. His country was bleeding talent and youth. In June 1961, he told journalists that nobody planned to build a wall. He was lying. Secret meetings were happening in Moscow and East Berlin. Communist leaders were planning something big. They needed to stop the escape of their citizens. But they had to act fast and in complete secrecy. Let me paint you a picture of Berlin in early August 1961. It was a warm summer. Families were planning vacations. Students were enjoying their holidays. Nobody suspected what was coming. Life felt almost normal, despite the political tension. On Saturday, August 12, 1961, everything seemed ordinary. People went to cafes, visited relatives across the city, and made plans for Sunday. Young couples walked hand in hand across the invisible border. Children played in parks on both sides of the city. But that night, something strange began. At midnight, the phone rang in newsrooms across West Berlin. Reporters received shocking news. The border was being closed. Soldiers were moving into position. East German soldiers and police received secret orders just hours before. They were told to report for a special operation. Most didn't know what they would be doing. The orders were clear: absolute secrecy. At exactly 1 o'clock in the morning, the operation began. Trucks filled with soldiers rolled through the dark streets of East Berlin. Behind them came more trucks carrying wooden posts, barbed wire, and concrete blocks. The noise of engines broke the silence of the night. Soldiers jumped from the trucks and began working immediately. They ripped up the streets along the border. They installed wooden posts every few meters. Then they stretched barbed wire between the posts, creating a barrier that grew longer every minute. The first Berliners to notice were night workers coming home. They stopped in shock. What was happening? Soldiers shouted at them to move away. Some people tried to cross quickly before the wire was complete. A few made it. Others were caught and arrested. By dawn on Sunday, August 13, the wire barrier stretched for 43 kilometers around West Berlin. The city was cut in two. People woke up to find their world had changed overnight. The street where they lived yesterday was now a border. Imagine the scene that Sunday morning. Families rushed to the border when they heard the news. Mothers cried out for their children who lived on the other side. Husbands were separated from wives. Brothers from sisters. The barbed wire stood between them like a cruel joke. On both sides of the wire, crowds gathered. People shouted across to their loved ones. They held up children so grandparents could see them one last time. West Berliners threw food and newspapers over the wire. East German soldiers watched nervously, fingers on their triggers. Some people tried to escape in those first chaotic hours. A young man named Konrad Schumann became famous. He was an East German soldier guarding the wire. Suddenly, he threw down his rifle and jumped over the barbed wire. Photographers captured the moment. His leap became a symbol of the desire for freedom. But not everyone was so lucky. The wire was just the beginning. Within days, workers began replacing the wire with concrete blocks. They built a real wall, 3 meters high. Behind it, they created a death strip with guard towers, searchlights, and attack dogs. The wall grew stronger and more deadly over the years. The East German government added a second wall, creating a no-man's land between them. They placed landmines in the ground. Guards received orders to shoot anyone trying to escape. The order was simple: stop escapees at any cost. Life changed completely for Berliners on both sides. In East Berlin, people lived in fear and frustration. They could see the West from their windows but couldn't reach it. Families were destroyed. Wedding plans were cancelled. Students couldn't reach their universities. In West Berlin, people felt trapped on an island inside communist territory. The city became a symbol of resistance against communism. But it was also a place of sadness. Every day, West Berliners looked at the wall and thought of the people trapped behind it. Let me tell you about some of the people affected. There was a woman named Frieda who lived in East Berlin. Her daughter had married and moved to West Berlin just 2 months before the wall. Now she couldn't visit her grandchild. She would stand at the wall, hoping to catch a glimpse of her daughter in the distance. There was a baker whose shop was cut in half by the wall. The oven was on the east side, the shop counter on the west. His business was destroyed in one night. He stood looking at his broken shop, unable to believe what had happened. Young people suffered terribly. Imagine being a teenager with your girlfriend or boyfriend on the other side. Some couples were engaged to be married. The wall appeared, and their plans were destroyed. Some waited years, hoping the wall would fall. Others eventually gave up and tried to build new lives. The wall became the most dangerous border in the world. Over the next 28 years, at least 140 people died trying to cross it. Some were shot by guards. Others died in accidents during escape attempts. Each death was a tragedy that shocked the world. But people never stopped trying to escape. Their creativity was amazing. Some dug tunnels under the wall. One tunnel was 145 meters long and helped 57 people escape. Others built hot air balloons. One family floated over the wall in a homemade balloon, landing safely in the west. Some people hid in car engines or fuel tanks. Others used fake passports. A few brave souls crashed through checkpoints in armored vehicles. Each successful escape gave hope to others. Each failure ended in prison or death. The guards who shot escapers were also victims in a way. Many were young men doing their duty. Some refused to shoot and were punished. Others followed orders and lived with guilt for the rest of their lives. The wall created moral dilemmas for everyone. World leaders reacted with shock and anger. The American president, John F. Kennedy, visited Berlin in 1963. He stood near the wall and gave a famous speech. He said, "Ich bin ein Berliner, I am a Berliner." He meant that all free people stood with Berlin against tyranny. The wall stood for 28 years, 2 months, and 27 days. It became the most powerful symbol of the Cold War. It showed the world the difference between freedom and oppression. On one side, people could speak, travel, and live freely. On the other side, they were prisoners in their own country. But the human spirit couldn't be contained forever. In the 1980s, the Soviet Union began to change. A new leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, introduced reforms. East Germans began demanding freedom. Protests grew larger and bolder. On November 9, 1989, everything changed again. A government spokesman accidentally announced that the border was open. Thousands of East Berliners rushed to the wall. Guards didn't know what to do. Finally, they opened the gates. People poured through the checkpoints, crying and laughing. Strangers hugged each other. West Berliners climbed onto the wall and began smashing it with hammers and pickaxes. The wall that went up in one night took months to come down. But that night, freedom returned to Berlin. The fall of the wall led to the reunification of Germany. Families separated for 28 years were finally together again. The city that was divided became whole. Today, only small sections of the wall remain as memorials and museums. So what does this moment in history teach us? First, it shows how quickly freedom can be taken away. The people of Berlin went to sleep in one world and woke up in another. We must always protect our freedoms and never take them for granted. Second, it teaches us about the power of the human spirit. Despite the wall, despite the guards and guns, people never stopped trying to be free. They risked everything for freedom. This shows that the desire for liberty is stronger than any wall. Third, it reminds us that even the strongest walls eventually fall. The Berlin Wall seemed permanent. The communist government seemed unbeatable. But the wall fell because people refused to accept it. Change is always possible when people stand together. The Berlin Wall also teaches us about division. Today, we still see walls being built around the world. Some are physical walls between countries. Others are invisible walls between people of different races, religions, or political beliefs. This reminds us that even today, we face the same questions. Do we build walls or bridges? Do we divide or unite? Do we choose fear or hope? The story of Berlin shows us that walls bring suffering, while unity brings strength. Think about the families separated by the wall. Think about the young soldier who jumped to freedom. Think about the people who died trying to escape. Their stories remind us that freedom is precious. It's worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth dying for. The Berlin Wall divided a city overnight, but it couldn't divide the human desire for freedom and connection. Today, Berlin is a vibrant, united city. Where the wall once stood, you can now walk freely. Memorials mark the spots where people died, reminding us never to forget. This history teaches us about human nature. It shows our capacity for both cruelty and courage. It shows how governments can oppress people, but also how people can overcome oppression. It shows that walls are temporary, but the human spirit is eternal. As you go about your day, remember the people of Berlin. Remember that freedom is not guaranteed. Remember that walls can appear overnight, but they can also fall. Remember that every person deserves to live in freedom, to be with their family, to pursue their dreams. The Berlin Wall is gone, but its lessons remain. We must stay vigilant against tyranny. We must resist division and choose unity. We must never build walls between human hearts. This is what history teaches us. This is what Berlin shows us. This is what we must never forget.